I never grew up with educators that looked like myself. I always knew that wisdom was a powerful tool, but I also know that oftentimes we neglect it because of who it comes from.
Facts.
It's not necessarily just about being a king, it's more so about becoming a kingmaker.
Man, you got to be close enough to relate, but far enough ahead to inspire. What's going on, beautiful people? This is the Let's Grow Together podcast, the place where diverse individuals and communities come to serve, connect, and grow in the areas that they're most passionate about. This your boy James, and I am joined with my brother Marcus, as always. Marcus, how you doing, brother?
So what's up, everybody? Pleasure to be back as always, man. I'm well. I'm well. Coming from North Carolina. I don't know if y'all know this hurricane been beating up on North Carolina, so
Oh wow.
just glad to be here, man. I had an opportunity for my people to come up this week from Asheville to get away from it, just to come pull up, man. Show some love. So always good to be recharged by the family, man. What about yourself? How you feeling, bro?
Man, it's actually interesting you mentioned that because we were just having a conversation about that very hurricane, and we got one of our counterparts is traveling to Florida, and we hearing like it was really hitting Florida hard too. So we telling them like you
Yeah.
want to be careful with any travel plans. But he was like I think he said Pentecostal Florida, so it's not too it's farther north, because they're going to a funeral in Alabama. So they said it's no airports in Alabama, so they got to travel from Pentecostal Florida. So but man, other than that, life is good, man. Stepped into this new role. Things are going well. But I think what I'm most excited with is something in my personal life. I'm working on a project. Fred and myself. He's gonna kind of play director, so it's gonna be special. It's gonna be something special. But um, on his podcast, we had alluded to that training we went to, and so
Mm-hmm.
from that training, I've made the decision to try to work on my relationship with my parents. So I told my girl like first step I'm gonna just try to schedule like a weekly call with them, not at the same time, but like just to kind of reconnect. And then I was like, this time I'm going into it with no expectation. My thought process is more so like, man, just having a conversation like, man, how did you grow up, like getting to really know him, versus like why did some of these things happen in my childhood, because
Mm-hmm.
I know it's pain for me, and as we talked about trying to have conversations from our wounds and not our scars, you know what I'm
Yes. Yes.
saying? So
Yes.
because it's kind of fresh, I'm going after it like, all right, let's have a different conversation that may lead into that.
Man, that's beautiful, bro. And that's something I was actually thinking about as my family came down this week. Is as the elders, pass away, it's on the next generation to be able to bridge the gap. So I'm so intentional with playing that role and understand there's a lot of sacrificial elements to be able to bridge the gap because we all know, oftentimes when grandma and my dukes and pops pass away, people kind of spread out. And the family isn't always as interconnected because of that. So, bro, I definitely commend you for taking that step. I mean, man, you're gonna bridge so many things with that, and everything will come full circle. So I'm proud of you. Kudos, bro.
Man, appreciate it. My dad though, he too thirsty, man. He like, pull up on me, pull up. No, I'm not pulling up on you. We gotta take it we gotta take it slow. We gotta take it slow. You know what I'm saying? But
Slowly
yeah, I
but
appreciate
surely.
that. I
Nah,
appreciate that.
definitely, definitely. I already bet. Well, let's get into it, man. What you got for us today as far as a quote? I know it's
Yeah,
another
yeah,
banger.
yeah. All right. So I am no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I am changing the things I cannot accept. And this is from Dr. Angela Davis. Marcus, coming to you
Mm.
first, man. What you think?
I mean, it makes me just think about endurance, right? I mean, I think it kind of loses Nipsey, right? It's a marathon, understanding that things that you want to change, you can, but it's going to be a small, gradual, impact of making that change, opposed to just wanting to see it kind of overnight, but not accepting, right? Like going to war for what you desire and what you want, and being willing to put it all on the line, and the evolution of that process within itself to create what you desire. Now that's dope. I like it. What's your thoughts, bro?
Man, it's funny because I didn't even realize this until I just was reading a quote, but it's so interconnected. Man, I've been in my teaching bag lately, like really getting after it. You know what I'm saying, with the
Okay.
curriculum development, training the mentors. But the specific lesson that we've been teaching, in Eliminate, is focusing on things that you can't control. Right. So this quote, it exemplifies that, or it echoes that very well. But in the lesson, I told people there's about 4 things that I know everybody can control, no matter who you are. I know this for a fact. I said that is your thoughts, your attitude, your effort, and then I said your habits. And then of course, and people was like, "Oh, I can't control my habit." I'm like, "No, you can." I'm like, after a while, once it becomes a habit, you can't. But like, you have the ability to change any habit that you have. And I'm like, and then there's 2 things I know that none of us can control, right? That is, we cannot control the past; it's already happened, and then we cannot control other people or their opinions. So when I think about this quote from Angela Davis, it just goes to that. When I look at that list of things I can control and things I can't, the list of the things I can is much longer, right? So when I focus on those things and I really ground myself in those things, my life is beautiful because I'm worried about what I can control, right? And
Mm.
whatever happens, I feel good because I'm like, I know I did the best that I can.
Mm-hmm. Now that's spot on. I was actually having a conversation with one of the young bucks just recently, and throughout the conversation, he was kind of dwelling on his faults. I was like, bro, if you invested the same energy in like all your positive attributes, bro, you would be a beast. And he just fell out laughing. It was like, bro, that's my thing. Like I'm so critical on
Yeah,
myself.
yeah,
And I think that really resonates with a lot of people. But nah, like that's so spot on. Being able to really focus and pour that energy into what you're great at to be even better at, opposed to always just being self-critical, analyzing all the negative nuances that come with you and dwelling on that, and then again, kind of just being stuck in that rut. So nah, bro, I like that a lot, man. I'm interested to hear what our guest got to say about that quote, man. So without further ado, Mr. Cam, hop on in and man, tell us a little bit about what does this mean to you, good brother? What does this mean to you?
Man, I know I was gonna get this deep this quick, dude. Uh, I'm no longer accepting the things I cannot change. I'm accepting the things I cannot accept. Whew. So as James was talking, and he was talking about control, this is something I was reflecting on maybe a couple weeks ago during the talk. Was what do I need to release?
yeah,
Um,
Mm,
and when I look at me, bro, and this quote, it's like I need to release like my ego. A lot of times, I need to release like power. Uh, I need to release expectations. All those things are things, like you said, I can't control. Um, and yeah, bro, like my job, another quote came to mind, like my job is to be like faithful, not fruitful. So I just need to do what I'm supposed to do and then not worry about the fruit at the end of it. So that's what's coming to mind once I read that, bro.
that's good.
you talked about the power. I was just having a conversation with my partner. Us as men, like, bro, that's hard. That is hard to do, bro. I've always said, man, like, I like being in a position where I'm able to depend on myself because I know if my back is against the wall, man, I trust myself to be able to make it shake. But
That's
there's
real.
situations where again, you aren't driving the ship. You are not in a position where you have to relinquish power. And oftentimes for us, that vulnerability just makes us so uncomfortable. But being able to understand that's a process of life too, man. I
Yeah.
definitely resonate with that.
Hey Marcus, it's funny, man. I got to give a big shout out to the trainers of that session because they talked about this. It was a training for trainers, and they talked about like uh, understanding what power means, right? And it was like in different scenarios we have power. They was like as restorative practitioners, we come in here and tell you, oh, it's all of our space. No one has power. She was like, but then I'm the one telling you put the values on the paper, do this, do that, and I'm like, dang, that is true. And they was like, but then she was like, and then I'll leave here and I get on a flight at 4 p.m. and then I'm on a plane. Who has power then? So she
Mm-hmm.
was like, when you really look at power in that dynamic, she was like all of us are vulnerable to someone else who has power, but identifying that power is powerful in itself. Like identifying where your role is in that power. I'm like, no, that's dope. I never thought of that.
100%. Now, spot on. But let's hop into it, Cam. Man, I'm interested. Again, we've had opportunities to collaborate a few times, man. I know the value that you bring to space such as this. But interested for those who may not know you, man. If you had to give them a synopsis, man, who is Mr. Cam? And then we'll dissect that a little bit.
Who is Cam, bro? What identities do I have? So, ambassador for Christ. I'm a husband. I'm an author. I'm a speaker. I'm a facilitator. I run a nonprofit called True Change. We focus on delivering programs around career readiness and personal development for local governments, community centers, school districts, just anybody who needs that type of growth. So that's the quick version of it.
Okay, okay. And I see the name is True Change, man. I know your background coming from a corporate setting to being in the nonprofit realm, right? That was a true change. That was a shift within itself. I'm interested to get a little bit more insight in regard to your background from a corporate setting and what caused you to make the pivot.
Yeah, dog. I don't know how much time we got, but so from a corporate side, so I went to Emory University in Atlanta, majored in economics. After I majored in economics, got into the investment world. So worked with different firms, doing options trading, kind of just elevated up the corporate ladder to where I was handling $250 million portfolios. So eventually got to that point to where I thought I had everything I wanted. Like, come from pretty humble beginnings, was making 3 times as much money as my mom, was going in wearing suits, had my spot in Atlanta, had the women, all of that. But I got to that point and I was just like unfulfilled, bro. So
Mm,
ended up having like mental battles, mental struggles. We'll get into that later. But really just felt called to step away. So put in my 2 week notice. Nobody had any idea what I was doing, why I was doing it. But I knew I had a revelation that I had used my gifts to serve myself for so long. I wanted to use them to serve others.
mm,
So I ended up just walking away. And really, bro, just my path has just been directed. Ended up doing some speaking engagements, turned into doing more workshops, turned into me writing a book based off of the workshops, and then forming True Change to where we collaborate with more organizations, serve more people, and just grow sustainably doing that. So, yeah, man, that's the corporate background.
But what would inspire somebody to go from making, 3 times as much as their mom to saying like, all right, I want to pivot and go to a nonprofit that really there's no money in nonprofits, you know what I mean? Because it's truly about the mission. So why decide to do a nonprofit and not say, all right, let me just go start some consulting business or a life coach business or something of that nature? Why choose the nonprofit route?
Great question. Great question. So at first it did look like that. At first it did look like, let me start my LLC, speaking engagement workshop so I can make that money, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, I want to say probably about a year in. So I guess rewinding. While I was in college, I had my first mentorship opportunity. And this was after I chose my major. I'm going to a PWI. And I remember going to this high school. Actually, it was a middle school. And when I walk in with like a group of other mentors, this kid is like laughing. And I'm looking at him like, what you laughing at?
Yeah, yeah.
And he starts laughing. He's like, bro, like, why are you here? You're not supposed to be here. Um,
mm,
like the school on the street, that's for white people, that's for Asian people, that's not for us, dog.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
mm,
And I
mm,
remember like laughing, but my heart was hurting.
Yeah.
And it was the first time I realized, like, all right, what I'm doing now, like going this corporate route, making this bread, all of that, like it's not really for me. It's to open people like his eyes,
Yeah.
so he can see something and say, all right, cool, I can do that. I had that moment, but I completely forgot about it.
Yeah.
So once I stepped out, once I started doing speaking engagements, things like that, you start off, or at least I started off serving like the clients I cared about the most. So my first
Mhm.
speaking engagement, transitional housing center, people who didn't have a house, all that stuff. Um, Doing it with different mentorship groups and all of that. But then once I started looking at the money and where the money was, it was all right, cool. Let me go to this PWI college and speak here,
Right, right, right.
mm, mm,
speak here. And I started having to say no to those smaller opportunities for
Mhm.
kids and the students who I know needed the most because I was just looking at it as a business.
Yeah.
Where's the return? Where am I going to spend
Mhm.
my time? How can I get the most bread in it?
Yeah.
So from a business model sense, me doing the coaching, um, it there was money there, but my heart didn't feel right charging certain people. I
Yeah.
literally had moms paying me to coach their kids uh, and get their kids in groups, just do all these different things. But I knew the moms didn't have the money; they were
Right.
pulling it from every different place.
Yeah.
So that's where I kind of take a step back and say, "All right, Cam, I walked away from corporate because I was using my gifts to serve myself, like point blank period. I left because I wanted to use my gifts to serve other people, but it was just turning into another version of me doing the same thing in a different
Yeah.
vehicle.
Yeah.
mm, mm,
So I had
Yeah.
to, yeah. So I had to have those conversations, be okay with not making as much money by
Mhm.
far, and really, like I said, I know my job is to serve people with my gifts, and I'm content with that.
Yeah.
me finding that contentment in my relationship with money, all the things that money was bringing was covering up insecurities that I don't have anymore, or that at least I die to every day when I wake up.
Yeah.
But it was me just having to have that mindset shift.
Yeah. Man, appreciate you sharing that. It's so dope because it's so much synergy in like your story. Because when the guys started the nonprofit, they were just doing it. Like they were just like, man, no matter who needed the program, if they had the money, like they were doing programs every day at different locations. And then there came a point where they were like, dang, like I know we're passionate about the work, but like I feel like we should be getting paid for the work. And then there came, opportunities where we were getting paid for the work. But like you said, the opportunities looked a little bit different. And we were like, dang, the people that we really wanted to serve, that we really could have had the greatest impact, they missed out. And so then like recently we were having some conversations like, man, we need some programming like hella high water, if we're paid or not, just because we love the work in this community, we're going to show up. So it's just so dope hearing you say that because I think the nonprofit work, I say this to all of my mentors that I train. I'm like, before you ever step in the classroom, you have to establish a why for mentorship. Like, because you can have your own North Star and your own why for yourself. Don't get me wrong. But for this mentorship stuff, when you're leading people, like you got to have your own purpose, because they won't always see what you see. Like you said, like they may laugh at you when you come in with this information. You're talking about subconscious minds and starting banking accounts and opening trust. They're like, what are you talking about? And now you're able to continue doing that because you have a why. That's something that you're passionate about.
For sure.
Mhm. Definitely, definitely. I love to dive into your journey. I heard you mention this briefly, mental health. For you to have all the the material things that you had in your role, right? It seemed like life was really thriving for you. I know in the back end there was a lot of things from a mental health perspective that may have not been in alignment for the outside eye, at least, right? I'm curious to get a little bit more content in regard to that journey and how you really overcame that as well, and kind of became the man you are today.
Yeah, dog. I was going through it on a couple different levels. So James mentioned it, but a lot of it was from like past healing that I needed and relationships, mainly with my father.
Mm.
So just, I guess, just the overview, just being a black man in corporate America, you already deal with a lot of.
Oh yeah.
1,000%.
Uh, so like that's the baseline. So
Yeah.
I'm dealing with that. I'm going in, interacting with people who've never probably talked to a black dude under the age of 30, and feeling like I have to please them and then go home, go with my people, and be a different person. So I was dealing with an identity crisis there.
Mm.
When it came with just forgiveness and like hardness of heart, um, so my parents separated when I was going into middle school. They got back together right when I went to college, and once I was in the corporate world, I was trying my best to rekindle the relationship with my father, and it just wasn't being reciprocated. So that
Yeah.
was just a mental battle I was going through. And then, like I already mentioned, just getting to a point to where you've been working your whole life for it. You're making your comfy six figures, all of that, but you're still unfulfilled, or at
Yeah.
least I was fulfilled. So it's like, yo, like what else is there for me to do to get rid of this feeling? So going through all of that, man, it really was a conversation with my dad to where I had like a trigger, and going through all the other stuff, I was just so shook on like, why is this dude affecting me so much? Like, like where are all these emotions coming from? So ended up, bro, just like thinking, and my brain started racing. And like didn't sleep for a couple days. Also, like I said, was just struggling with like what else is next. Like I've already done everything I want to do,
Mm-hmm.
travel, money. Like there's nothing else here for me, and got to the point to where I was in a different mental state, bro, and was fully suicidal. Uh, so ended up passing out. Like I said, hadn't slept for 4 days. Woke up to lights in my face, and it was a cop. And at this point, I like didn't want to be here at all. It's December 3rd, 2017. On the side of the road, hadn't slept, and the cop is like shining a light in my face, and the only thought I had was, "Dang, bro, I really want him to shoot me."
Mm.
And how can he shoot me? Let me punch him in the face. And so I ended up punching the cop in the face, getting tased, and getting to taken to jail. And this was maybe my sixth time being arrested at this point. Um, yeah, bro. So I'm on suicide watch in jail. I'm contemplating everything, and I end up meeting two dudes. Don't know their names to this day, but one was a black dude around my age, and the other was a Hispanic dude around my age. And like I said, we on suicide watch. We all in the same spot.
Mm-hmm.
And when that happens, I start talking to the black dude, and he starts talking to me, and he's like, "Yo, bro, can you?" He's like, "Yo, can you kill me? Like, we can make it look like an accident."
Mm.
And when he says that, I'm like looking at him, and like I said, I'm in the same place as him. There's no judgment. Like, I'm literally right next to Buddy, and I remember just encouraging him. And if I'm being transparent, I remember like asking to pray with him. I'm like, "Hey, bro, do you want me to pray with you?" So a couple minutes pass by, he starts crying. He's like, "Yeah, bro, yeah, can you pray with me?" So we start praying. The guards start banging because they don't like that.
Yeah.
Uh, Buddy, like he stopped crying. He's like, "Y'all feel so much better." While we're doing that, the Hispanic dude, like I said, tatted up, face tats, all of that, not a dude you mess with. He's bawling, crying. So once he's crying, he's like, "Hey, bro, like I feel the same way as y'all. Can you pray with me too?" So I end up praying with him. Once we're done praying, Buddy stops crying. He's like, "Yo, I've never felt this sense of peace before." I'm like, "Bro, just release." And I say, "Give your life to Christ, and you'll feel like that every day." So guard comes. He's like, "Phillips, you got to come with me." Puts me in isolation. And when I was in isolation, I had like the clearest moment I've ever had. And three things came to mind. One was, "Cam, you're not in control.
Mm.
Think because you're smart, because you can finesse, because you have this job that you're dictating everything, but you're not in control, bro." Second thing was, humble yourself. Stop trying to compare yourself to other people to say that you're good, and just look at me. And the third thing was, don't care if people call you crazy. I'm going to call you to do things that aren't going to make sense to the outside world, but I need you to be obedient and do that. And like I said, this is before I left corporate. I'm making six figures, all of this, but I'm in this cell. And I'm like, bro, how did I even end up here? So I end up right after that moment of clarity, I get transferred to a mental hospital. And one thing I always say is like, it was one of the freest times I had because it was the first time I could just take my mask off, or at least felt like I
Yeah.
could just take my mask off. Because it's like, yo, everybody here got issues. Like, I don't care
Yep.
if you're a lawyer, doctor, house mom, like what it is. Everybody here got issues. So ain't no like hiding it. And also realizing like I could have lost my life multiple times in that night, and having the perspective on just what really matters. All the stuff I was stressing about before, all of the feeling like I have to impress this person or that person, or I have to finesse in order to make more money at the end of the day, like none of that really matters. What matters is who I'm able to impact, who I'm able to help, who I'm able to serve. So after that event, bro, just being able to walk in with that new perspective, that was kind of the catalyst to me being able to walk this out every day.
That's
Yeah.
real good,
I
man.
feel like I just went on a rant,
Yeah,
but
no, that was good, man. I'm a kind of ask a follow up question, but first off, man, appreciate you sharing that. So just kind of continuing and going along with that story. How did you get over the issue? Right, you said you were dealing with some things with your dad. So like,
yeah,
how
yeah,
did after going through the moment you had in isolation, like how did you come to your father and like what were those conversations like?
no, love it. The first thing was admitting that certain things hurt.
Okay.
So at first, it's like I'll talk in the first person. So for me, it's, yo, I'm a grown man. I'm not supposed to have feelings for this other grown man. Like, you're not supposed
Yeah.
to hurt my feelings. I'm not supposed to care. Like, I don't care. Like, in admitting I do care.
Yeah.
I do feel loved by my father. I do want to have a relationship with him. I have created all these barriers so I don't feel like I need that, but that is something that I desire. So
Yeah.
just admitting that to myself first. Um, Seeking help for those things. So when it comes to the healing of relationships, when it comes to why I didn't trust black men in the first place, and that was when I was younger, being sexually abused. Me never mentioning that or telling that to anybody until I was in a mental hospital, thinking that nobody would ever find out.
Right.
Bringing the stuff that I had buried. Someone said this quote to me before, bro. When you bury emotions alive, they always come back tenfold. Like anything you bury alive, like is gonna come back in one way or another. And it was me first off acknowledging all of the things I had buried alive. After that, it was me seeking for help, whether it was in therapy, whether it was groups, small groups, whether it was church, but seeking wise counsel, seeking experts to help me work out these things and talk about these things. Once I started doing that, I started realizing how common it was for people to have the same pain that I've had. Literally, successful people. I remember maybe a month after was talking to this dude, commercial banker, and he was telling me, bro, I had a panic attack yesterday. Like, and you look at this person and never think they're going through these things. But
Yep.
as I started hearing, as I started opening up, you start connecting with more people who have a similar story. Um, and then, yep, from there, bro, it was a lot of different things, releasing expectations. So when I am trying to rekindle a relationship with my father, with like whoever it is, not having an expectation on how they should react or how they should take it. Knowing why I'm going into the conversation. If it's for clarity, I'm looking for clarity. If it's for an apology, knowing that's what I'm going in there and looking for.
Right. Right.
If it's for understanding, it's for that. So releasing certain expectations of how I'm playing something out in my head, it should work, and just accepting that person for who they are and what they can offer. Um, yeah, man, I could keep going. Just
Yeah.
routines and habit building. I realized that the storm, people say the storm is going to hit you, whatever, like at some point in time. And how am I starting my day? Like, what energy am I putting into how I'm starting my day to where I'm in a good mindset and I'm not just reacting to
Yep.
whatever happens, but I've
Yep.
already started that momentum.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro. So those are just a few of the things that like
Damn.
I had to start incorporating in a mindset shift to where I was able to heal.
Yeah. Uh, Man, bro, the reason, because I'm just even thinking about my whole this process and this journey I'm on with my parents, and I'm like,
Yeah.
bro, that's the biggest hindrance that I'm having is like this expectation that like it has to go this way, like it's almost like, well, I'm gonna say the past me, because I'm at a point now where it's like, I'm letting go and letting God do what He needs to do. But um, I know that there's some work that I need to do, but it's like I felt like I was trying to do too much too soon. Because at first I was with my dad, like, all right, we can meet up, we can do
Yeah.
that, and I'm like, you know what, hold up, because to be candid, I'm not sure if I want that relationship, but there's something there, like there's something that I need there, and I know it because of, like you said, like it's just like I obviously care if my what my dad thinks and how my dad looks at me and all this other stuff, but sometimes I had this thing in my head where I'm like, I've accomplished these things, and my dad will brag because I'm his son. Like, yeah, that's my son. Look at him. And I'm
Yeah.
like, man, you ain't contribute to none of this. Like, how you gonna brag? Like, but like I've grown to understand, like, he's a father. Like, what father wouldn't be proud of his son? You know what I mean? So I have to give that grace. But I am on this journey of like trying to remove the expectation and just allowing what needs to happen, because the expectation will hurt me every time. Because if I go into the conversation like, all right, I'm expecting him to tell me why he didn't do this or why he treated me this way, I know he may never say that, but the expectation is going to kill me more than whatever he actually says.
Yeah.
Mhm. We always say expectations are giving somebody a contract that they never signed that you've accepted, right?
That's
Because
crazy.
oftentimes when it comes to expectations, they're your internal expectations. If you haven't expressed them externally and they haven't agreed to them, then essentially it's an internal battle in which you're gauging, right? They don't even know that you expect them to do this, but you're trying to hold them to standards in which haven't been communicated. And essentially you're always going to set yourself up for failure in that regard. But man, I just want to give y'all flowers, bro. Like, this is black man, like seeing, I mean, I have my father in my life, so it makes me that much more appreciative. But again, for you all to want to have that relationship, when I know so many young men who are just like, bro, screw them, like, you know what I'm saying, they live in the same neighborhood and down the street, but you all are more than willing to open and listen and hear out. And I think more than anything, Cam, you kind of talked about it, man. Like the mantra and just the quote from a Bible perspective, just be still and know that I'm God. Like, I've understand that oftentimes we're not gonna understand where we are in our course, but again, everything has already been created and destined for that. So as you all are rekindling these relationships and being very proactive in your approach, right? It's not gonna do anything to give y'all clarity and help you all heal as you all aspire to be fathers going down the line as well, man. So again, just had to give y'all flowers, bro. I love again because me and James have had some of these conversations for you to say it as well. I'm like, bro, this is so spot on. But I just don't think we create spaces enough to have these vulnerable conversations. And it's crazy that sometimes you got to go through, those peaks and valleys to be able to really be reflective upon that as well.
So, man, Cam, because this conversation is interesting to me.
Yeah.
Was there somebody around you that saw like maybe you need to like talk to your dad, like maybe you need to fix this, like was there someone that saw this, or was it just you just kind of doing your own self-reflection? Because for me, my girlfriend comes from like a really big family, so like family is big to her, like, and she tries not to press the issue but like it's an issue for her that I don't have a relationship with my parents. So she's like, man, there's like you're missing out on just who you are as a person. So I'm just wondering, like, was there anybody around you that was like, man, like, you know, you need, maybe there's something with your dad. Like, was there someone that came to you like that?
Yeah. So most of like my friends growing up, they saw the dynamic and they kind of were like, "Hey, bro, your dad's kind of crazy." It's all
Yeah,
good, right?
yeah.
But similar to you, it's my wife now. It was her pushing me. So I don't share this story often, but I'll definitely share it now. So I remember this was maybe 2.5, 3 years ago, and it was still me trying to rekindle like a relationship with my pops, but on his side, there being a lot of denial and responsibility on like certain things that happen, right? And it's like, all right, bro, like I can't even have this conversation with you. I
1000%.
remember going, yeah. So I remember going to the retreat, and it was low key almost like a quiet retreat, so I had a lot of quiet time. And I remember like I was just like angry in my heart, and like I've transformed in a bunch of different ways, but for whatever reason, like I was just angry at him. I'm like, bro, like why can't he change? Like why can't he realize this? Like I love him. Like I'm having these conversations for clarity. Nobody's like blaming him, but like why am I so angry? And I remember like praying that, talking to the Lord, and he told me two things. He was like, I was like, how can I support my dad? I tried to reframe it. So I tried to have like an empathy standpoint. Like he's been through all these things. That's why he reacts the way he reacts. How can I support him in that? And still being angry about it. It's like, bro, I'm his son. Like he's supposed to support me, but I have to be the adult, right? How can I support him?
Yeah.
And it was pray for him and pray with him. So I remember I'm like, all right, whatever. I've been praying, but whatever. And at this point, my wife Sasha, she done put it on her prayer list. All of these,
Yeah.
well, we talk about it, so I'm praying like all of
Yeah,
this. So I'm like,
yeah.
all right. So fast forward, weekend ends, and I remember like driving to my crib, but something told me like, yo, stop by your folks. So took the long way, stop by my folks, pull up, knock on the door. Mom picks up. I'm like, yo, where's Pops? And she told me, he's like, yesterday he picked up his Bible and just started reading it.
Let's go.
I was like, what?
Yeah.
So she's like, yeah, he's in the living room. So I went in. I'm like, hey, what's good? Like, what's going on? He's like, oh, it's just something took my spirit yesterday, and like I just been like picked it up. So I'm like, what's going on, bro? So then I'm like, yo, like, how can I pray for you? I'm about to dip, but I just want to ask, how can I pray for you? Dog, my pop started bawling, crying. He's like, yo, like I've never had anybody ask me that. I've never known that y'all care.
Yeah.
And after that, it was me coming home telling my wife, she's like, I told you prayer works, like all this stuff. But also knowing like, how can I support him as he's going through his own healing too?
Yeah.
And
Oh man.
this was maybe 2.5 years ago, and now, bro, like me and my pops are tight. Like that's the
Yeah.
homie.
Yeah.
A few months
Man.
ago, he called my phone, and when I saw his name on my phone, it threw me off because I can't remember him ever actually calling me.
Right.
And it's not like me and him have a terrible relationship, but just in his mind, he doesn't feel he. I feel like there's a lot of guilt on things that happen to where he's like, oh, I'm just gonna be accessible, but I'm not gonna reach out to y'all. But as I perceive him, he me back.
Yeah, that's real good. Hold on. I give you a real.
Yeah, there we go.
Yo,
There we go.
so So real quick, Marcus, because and, let's grow together, family. Like this is a heartfelt episode for me because it's so crazy. Like I didn't even tell Marcus this story, and Marcus, please bear with me. But
Yes, sir.
I went to this training, bro, and man, this guy was talking about going to Vietnam and basically him getting shot, basically coming back to the United States and basically being an outsider. So then he became an alcoholic, basically was like lost himself for about 15 years. And basically he was like, he had went to this like shaman or something. And he basically was like, you got to go back to Vietnam and go to the place where you were wounded. So he basically he went back to Vietnam, and he basically told the story about how they had this ceremony where he got shot, and he was like, it was basically at that time where he basically found that like 18-year-old kid that was forced to go away to Vietnam in the army. He was like, but the whole entire time, like he was like, it was like a blur, it was like a blink because he just couldn't remember, like he just didn't feel like it was real. And so like as he was telling that story, I saw myself in this journey of like leaving the crib at 11, making different decisions because of my parents, this, that, and the third. And then I was like, man, him telling that story, and of course I left out a lot of the details, but him telling that story was like, man, maybe I need to rekindle this relationship. And the realization that you just had where you said like, how can I serve my parents? Bro, I was in a session talking about restoring harmony within like a family dynamic, within a community, within, and I was like, bro, God has been literally training me to be the person that they needed for this relationship to work. And I was like, man, I hadn't seen it. I was like, dang. And so of course, like I'm having this breakthrough in this session. Some of my guys like Chuck, some of the other guys, they seeing me about to cry. They about to cry. They like, man, like James crying, this is real. So but the dopest part about it all, like I cannot make this up. And I left there and I was like, I now know what I gotta do. Like I got more, like I left here with more clarity than I ever had. Bro, I went to sleep. I woke up the next morning at like 7:30 in the morning. A random number calls me. I'm like, this is odd. Like I was doing some editing for the podcast. I answer it, and it's a woman on the other phone. She say, "Baby," I'm like, "Hello." She like, "Baby," and I'm like, "Who is this?" And she's like, "Your mama." So I'm like I'm literally on the day. I'm like, "What?" She just get to talking, and so like me and my mom don't have the greatest relationship either, but for the first time in a long time, I was like, you know what? I'm not gonna get mad. I'm just gonna listen. And bro, I'm talking about, I just sat there and I allowed her to talk. And bro, like I heard her, and she said, like I heard for the first time, like she's in pain too. You know what I'm saying? Like she's dealing with stuff too. And I was like, man, it's so crazy how many times she probably called me, and I didn't answer because of how I was feeling. And I was just like, fuck. Like, and she revealed some stuff to me. I was just like, bro, like it broke my heart. And I was just like, damn, just how many times have I ignored your call and you was asking for help? So it was just like, bro, the same realization you had. Like, I haven't got to the point where I've gone to my parents and was like, man, how can I restore harm? How can we have these conversations? But the similarity is there, where it's like, bro, like we have literally been equipped with the tools to do what's necessary to mend this relationship. So I think that's powerful.
Y'all are definitely in this journey, right, of true change, of power by belief, of a greater good for a reason, man. And I love just seeing that realization, that spark, getting both you all's eyes just in the midst of the conversation of the skill sets that you all have developed throughout, again, the trials and tribulations are what are going to be used to essentially empower you all to overcome these specific situations, bro. So like, that's beautiful, man. It's a full circle moment just hearing both of those different pieces. Now, Cam, definitely want to hop a little bit back more into your story as well too, man. I know we had a little bit of a deep dive, but I know you recently took a trip, bro, and it looked dope. So I'm interested to get a whole lot more of that feedback because, again, I know originally in the conversation you talked about making a pivot because you want to do things that really empowers you, things that leverage your skill set to be able to empower others. And during this trip, man, I saw the prayer, I saw the bonding, I saw the relationships, things of that nature. But I want to get a little bit more insight into it for those who may not know, man. So can you tell us about this Macedonia trip you recently had the opportunity to go on?
I was wondering if it was Macedonia or not. Yeah, so Macedonia is right over Greece. I didn't know where it was until I was asked to go. and I partnered with another nonprofit called Just Right for Now. So they focus on giving different experiences to student athletes. And the guy, his vision was, what would it look like if we took a group of student athletes, took them overseas before they got to college, so they could have that shift in perspective. So I ended up partnering with them, going on the trip and delivering the workshops and the curriculum throughout the 8 days we were there. And it was a dope trip, bro. It was. I feel like a lot of people struggle with identity, and it's hard to break away from whatever identity you're associated with unless you get out of that environment,
Yep.
unless you're exposed to it. So this is for student athletes, but that goes with any demographic you could think about. So it was amazing to go on a trip with, like I said, most of them high school, entering college. Yeah, so we went over a lot of different topics. We'd have workshops in the morning, workshops in the evening, and then they play basketball in between that time, and then go on different cultural trips. So the topics covered a broad variety of things, a lot of things about their identity, about their values. I use a 3M approach. So I'm not here to motivate anybody. I go into most sessions, people want a motivational speaker, and that's not what my gift is.
Yeah.
Because no matter what I say, you have to motivate yourself. And people are
1000%.
three things: uh, milestones, moments, and missions. So helping them figure out like what moments have been motivating them, what are they wanting to get out of ball, what milestones are they trying to hit, whether it's professionally, whether it's academically, whether it's on the court, and then ultimately what their mission is and how are they using their gifts on the court in the real world. How are they using those gifts to serve other people?
Yeah.
I always say everybody has talents, but it doesn't turn to gift. Everybody has talents, but it doesn't turn into a gift unless you give it away. So how
Yep.
are you giving that away?
Yep. Yep. It's funny. My mentor, he has a quote. It's when identity is unknown, abuse is inevitable. So it's like when you don't know who you are, other people will tell you every time. Every time. So you mentioned it was high school students. Like, was it a particular high school, or were they able to come from different high schools?
Yeah, so most of the students were sourced from the greater Atlanta area. And then we had a couple of students who actually came from Indiana. So they were in
Gotcha.
homeschool. Yeah,
Okay. Man, it's a big like shift towards like homeschooling. Like I know a
Yeah.
lot of people who are now like homeschooling their kids. Like I met some triplets, like some of the dopest Nigerian triplets you'll ever meet, but like super smart though, super smart.
for sure. For
I
sure.
wanna pivot a little bit, man, and talk a little bit about your book. I believe it's called The Bigger Picture.
Yeah,
So yeah, let's talk a little bit about that. Like one, like what led you to writing the book. And then let's talk a little bit about some of the like most impactful lessons that's in the book.
for sure. So I mentioned when I started doing speaking engagements, started doing a lot of different workshops, and most of my workshops were based off of things that I wish I would have known. And after I
Yes.
was in corporate America and people saw me as an asset, they spent a lot of money to teach me a lot of things that I could have at a young age. So it was me taking a lot of these concepts and putting my spin on it and saying, all right, cool. How can a middle schooler receive this? How can a high schooler receive this? How can someone who doesn't have that corporate background, how can they
Mm-hmm.
implement this? So ended up doing a bunch of workshops and then getting to a point to where transparently I wanted to create a curriculum, but I
Mm-hmm.
knew how long the curriculum would take. So I
Yeah.
said, let's book instead. And using the book is, like I said, a resource, a guide that they can go through by themselves, but really a lot of mentors can go through it with their mentee.
Got
And
you. I like that.
the book has three main levels. The first level is values to visions. So I would say your values dictate your decisions form your process guides your journey leads to your vision. So before you even start going down whatever path you want to go down to, let's figure out who you are. Let's figure out what those core values are. So that can be your guide rails.
I like that.
For me, my core values was authenticity, but I realized once I started making a little money, I was switching up, and I didn't have a sense of peace.
Right. Right.
uh, if I say my value is service, but I'm literally just worried about how much bread I can get, like I'm not the best version of Cam. So
That's real.
working on what your core values are, and then going through what your story is, what your future looks like, what's your personal mission statement, and then how do you set action-driven goals. So
I
that's
like that.
level one. Level two, it's about communication. So also the 5 C's of connection. What's your communication style? What gives you confidence? Community. So how do you build a community? How do you build an inclusive community?
Mm-hmm.
How do you have critical conversations? And how do you manage conflict? And one of my favorite lessons in that, it's the critical conversation portion. I feel like a lot of times, at least for me, you're told, hey, you need to get away from this crowd. You need to get away from these people. Um, but we never know how to have those conversations
Yep.
to those people close to us. We're
Mhm.
just told like, you'll get away from them, don't hang out with them. But bro, like these are people I'm with every day. Like I have to have this conversation. So I take them through 10 different steps on how to have those conversations.
That's
And the
fire.
last part is called mental health magic. So magic stands for mindfulness, attitude, gratitude, inspiration, and circle of support. So walking them through, like I said, no matter what job you got, no matter if you know your core values, if you're great at talking, great at communicating, the best person on the world, you're still gonna go through something.
Yep.
And when you're going through something, I'm just not gonna tell you to meditate and manifest and everything's gonna be okay because that's not the truth. There needs to be things that you're in order to get through that. So walking them through what that looks like in a very practical way. And always, I feel like most of my talks, most of the things I do end up in community in that last
Yep.
circle of support. So as you are trying to make shifts, as you're trying to make pivots, as you're trying to break through doors, who's with you and who's supporting you. And that's so dear to me because I thought I could do it by myself for so long. I was so comfortable being in isolation, comfortable being independent, feeling like I'm gonna just push through everything. But there's strength in numbers,
Yes.
and
Mhm.
if I get the around me, have a sense of vulnerability to say, "Yo, I need help." Giving people permission to check me. My homies is, hey, bro, I don't need y'all cheering me on. I need y'all checking up on me work wise, marriage wise, making sure I'm doing what I'm saying I'm doing so I can really make that shift and elevate however I want to elevate. So,
That's real.
Hmm. I really dig magic, man. We'll have to dive into that in one of our further connections, man. But I'm curious to know, you are extremely reflective from the relationship we've had and what I've been able to engage and observe with, man. I'm curious to know, throughout you writing this book, bro, like what was the most like reflective moment? Was that, maybe something upon you and your father? Was that, a specific speech? Was that a specific impact engagement with a youth? What was the biggest kind of like uh moment in which caused you to really reflect throughout your journey in the midst of writing this book?
mm, that's a good question. My biggest moment of reflection. I'm gonna answer. I hope this is answering the question. So the twist is, I had started writing another book before. I had started writing. I was 28,000 words in of writing like a memoir and my story and all this stuff. But something told me, yo, stop writing this. I need you to write this other book. And as I was writing it, I had to be reflective on, I guess, not making it about me. Uh, like, if you know me well enough, it's like I like listening. I tell stories to get a point across, but it was me figuring out how can I deliver this content to where anybody can pick it up and get value
Yep.
from it, and it's not plan centric. Um,
Mm,
yeah, when it comes to the stories in there, like I said, I have probably 15 different stories to just kind of get the point across. But I didn't go very deep in the story. I just went enough to relate to them so they can understand the concepts and so they can connect it to their life. Um,
mm,
so I think that was probably the biggest lesson I learned writing it was, yeah, I don't want it to be about Cam. I don't want Cam to be the hero of this story, of this book, but it's really about them being self reflective, connecting on certain things so they can see how it can show up in their life. But yeah, just not wanting it to be about me.
That's real. That's real. As a person in the process of kind of writing a book or a narrative myself, I completely understand that. I completely understand that. Man, just kind of pivoting a little bit, I wanted to kind of ask you, like, what's next for True Change? Where do you see your organization in the next 5 or 10 years, and how do you plan to continue and expand your impact?
Yeah, so I guess we never even got this far. So I'm new to North Carolina. I've been here for about a year or so. And when I moved from Atlanta to North Carolina, it quickly showed me that I need to have more systems in order to scale the impact. Because there are certain
Yeah.
opportunities that just couldn't go back to Atlanta all the time. So the first thing was bringing people alongside me who have the skill set, who have the passion, to make the same type of impact and see if we can align efforts. With that, it's also been this, like back office system. So when it comes with student follow up, when it comes with reaching out for programs, just having that delegated to
Mm-hmm.
other people or other, so I can focus on the content and building relationships.
Yeah.
Um, so yeah, so right now in the works of I won't say coming out with the course, but taking the book concepts and putting
Mm-hmm.
that in a course format to really service other facilitators.
Yeah.
So having some modules for students, but really wanting to help the facilitators who may not have the corporate background or may not be able to bring some of the tools that I've learned, but they do have a heart to serve. They have a heart for the youth.
Yeah.
So working on that course, and then like I said, always doing speaking engagements, workshops, partnering with different, whether it's youth summits, conferences, programs, to where we can come in and deliver content, but then almost like you said, a train the trainer model and really give them all this curriculum that we have and all these
Yeah.
exercises that we have so they can continue to make an impact in whatever local entity they're in. So, yeah, me learning not, I don't have to be two places at once, but if I can serve the people who are in those places, I can still make that impact. And
Yep.
to reflect on what impact look like, and it doesn't have to be me talking in front of 1,000 people. It
Yep.
can be working with one person who's going to be able to take this and go back to the organization and make an impact. So
I love it.
Duplication and scalability. Yeah, is the name of the game. I love it, man. Well, man, we had a very introspective conversation, man. It kind of went a little bit of everywhere, man. But I know
Hmm.
this is gonna be one that everybody is gonna be able to find some value in, man. So, as traditionally, we pivot to our growth segment, man. So, our guest previously, Mr. Fred, aka Russ himself, left
Yes.
us some good information, man. But his quote was, man. Well, he said, I encourage you to shift the use of fake it till you make it into act it until it exists. Be it, right? So I'm just curious to know, man, like, how does this apply to you? And I think this goes hand in hand with what? Cognitive dissonance, right? The whole conversation we had to begin with in our journey as well, too, man. So I'm interested to know what you got out of this, how this applies to you, and any just feedback from there.
yeah, when the first thought that came to me when I read that quote is just comparison and getting rid of I need to be here, I need to be there. I'm looking at someone else's Instagram and I feel like I could be doing the same thing at a higher level. And yeah, just being present and knowing that we're all on our own race, our own path, and finding the gratitude in that. So instead of like the fake it till you make it, it's I'm trying to get here and I'm not happy where I'm at. But can we learn to be content and abound at the same time?
Yep.
Mm,
Yep. That's powerful.
nah.
That's powerful. And now Cam, we
I
would
want
just
to. I
oh, go
want to
ahead. You got
comment.
it.
I want to comment one thing, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
The session we had you for a speaker, you talked about cognitive dissonance. You dropped a lot of jewels. I really enjoyed it. How does that apply to cognitive dissonance to you? Out of curiosity.
So the quickest definition of cognitive dissonance. Let me define the word first. Would be having a thought that doesn't match up with your actions. And I'm
Mm,
big on aligning your actions to what you want to happen. So reading that quote, it's twofold, man. Maybe it's me being cynical, but a
mm,
lot of people pretending like they don't care what people think.
Yep.
that's
Maybe so working on acknowledging either I do care what other people think. Why? Where's that rooted? For me, I was crazy insecure. So a lot of things I was striving for, it was to prove myself to other people and trying to do it faster, trying to do it quicker, trying to do it bigger so I could prove my worth to other people. Um, but I think it's people having that like come to Jesus moment on dang, like I'm really insecure. I really do care about what people think.
Yep.
What am I really attached to? Like, and once we acknowledge that, then we can work on shifting that perspective or pivoting. But I think that first thing is just being real about what bothers us, not trying to hide it, not trying to bury it, not trying to pretend like it doesn't exist, uh, but just being real. Like, I'm insecure. I buy Jordans because I want me to walk in and people know, like, hey, you know,
Now that's real, Cam. I often tell people identity is twofold: is who you are and why you are. It's like, why are you the way that you are, and also who you are as a person, man. But we really appreciate you, Cam. But we would ask you, what is your growth segment? What is your gem that? Excuse me. What is your gem or question that you would like to leave for our next guest?
oh man, gem or question? I would say, all right. What's coming to mind is, who do you need to give permission to check you?
Yeah.
Who do you need permission to check?
I love that question because we recently, I just was telling Marcus, we had some conflict resolution within our internal team, and something that we thrive ourselves on is disagreeing well. We thrive ourselves on disagreeing well, but we will definitely hold each other accountable. So I love that question.
Mhm. Yeah, that's so spot on. I'm excited for our next guest to be able to really speak to that, man. But again, let's grow together, family, man. Cam, we appreciate you hopping on. We appreciate you sharing some gems, being extremely vulnerable, being transparent. Again, we know numerous people are gonna get so much value from this, man. But if they're looking to stay connected with you, man, where can they follow you? Where can they tap in with you, good brother?
Yeah. So on the personal tip, Cameron Phillips with the K.com and at it's Cam Phillips. And then for the nonprofit, that's maketruechange.org or Make True Change at all social media.
All right, man. We appreciate you again, Cam. It was a fire story, gems drop, and I personally appreciate just the sentiment about the relationship with your parents, because literally I'm taking mental notes as I move forward on this journey. So, from the Let's Grow Together family to you, brother, we appreciate you.
No, I appreciate y'all having me. Much love.
Yes, sir.
Always.
Until next time, family. Peace out.
Trying to find me a balance in life. Why I'm still trying to gamble with life. Wanna be great, it gotta come with a price. Gotta watch what you ask for. I strive for these moments in life. I'm still learning and giving advice. I try carrying the weight of the world. See, I saw when I was losing myself. I had to catch my breath. Nobody got you like you got yourself. So it's important for you to know who you are. Cause in the dark you gotta fight with your heart. Even if your heart broken apart. But they still gon' judge me. So tell me how that's been here for me. I had to see that everybody didn't love me. Like everybody ain't for me. I took chances just to see for myself. Cause for the longest I've been hurting myself. Trying to blame someone else. I stand on it, don't regret what I did. Cause I can live that my intentions were real. My heart just needed to heal. Gotta get back to loving myself and trusting myself and better my health. Nobody loves you like you loving yourself. You gotta know who you are. Gotta get back to loving myself and trusting myself and better my health. Nobody loves you like you loving yourself. And be